Hi everyone. For this particular video, I wanted to accomplish two basic things. I wanted to discuss how Karl Jobst is racist, and I wanted to discuss how people don't want to discuss how he's racist. The video will divide in two. First, I'll discuss about my history with Karl Jobst. It'll be a rehash of things that we've talked about already, but in effect, I will be going over all of the evidence that I have in regards to Karl Jobst being racist. The second half of the video, we will talk about various individuals who are hesitant to talk about how Karl Jobst is racist. Essentially, they'll mention the quiet part, but they won't really say it out loud, or they'll just kind of talk around it. Even if they're minorities, they don't want to mention it, giving them sort of a fearful or even tokenized quality. And first and foremost, here's the first part of the video. The first part of the video concerns my history with Karl Jobst. And this goes back basically years at this point. I was introduced to Karl's content in 2018, 2019, thereabouts, when I was in grad school. And I didn't really talk about him too much academically or in my writing until 2024. But in regards to me starting to mention Karl, I did it shortly after Donald Trump was elected president. So I, Persephone Vanderwaard, am a middle-class white trans woman. My name's Dutch, in case anyone is wondering. My grandfather was a Holocaust survivor, and I have even mentioned and discussed that before. So about 3 months ago, I actually did a video where I talk about my Dutch history. But before that, when Donald Trump was elected, I made a video where I say survive, solidarize, and speak out, because silence is genocide. And that is going to become quite relevant very shortly when we get into why people are refusing to talk about Karl Jobst. Karl Jobst is a Nazi. Karl Jobst is a Nazi because he had Nazi friends, and he never apologized for them, and he still maintains contact with people on his server and elsewhere who are racist. He is a con artist, he is sexist, and just an all-around bigoted person who has never attempted to change his ways. And we'll get into that. The point being is that basically, by the time of Trump's election, I started to use my channel more and more to talk about things that had to do with activism, including speaking out about racism. And with Karl, initially about 3 months ago, I talk about why I left speedrunning, and I talk about Karl as a pickup artist, but also how he had neo-Nazi friends. I also talk about, after that, Elon Musk doing the Nazi salute, white moderates in weightlifting culture, fascism in video games, TV shows, liberals, Islamophobia, and Noah Samson talking about Destiny, Mudahar, and Ethan Klein. Mudahar from Some Ordinary Gamers being someone that will come up in a little bit. But, I started talking about a lot of these things, and then lo and behold, on April Fool's, it is revealed that Karl Jobst lost his lawsuit against Billy Mitchell, and it's revealed that he lied about Apollo Legends. And once the cat was out of the bag, I found myself basically paying attention to what was happening with Karl and responding to it according to people who are covering him. One of them is LUS, and another is Gen X Gamers, Smash JT, and a couple other people as well. So, Karl is someone that I've been following basically since Trump's election, and I've noticed that people have started talking about him more, and I predicted that when they would, they were gonna notice that he was a sex pest. And I predicted in this video here that, amongst other things, once they started looking into his sex pest activities and his pickup artist videos, that they would also, it stood to reason, in my mind anyways, begin to discuss his racism. And much to my surprise, or perhaps lack of surprise, honestly, people are not doing that. And in this video, for instance, I talk about my past work with Karl. I talk about his racism. I look into other investigations by Smash JT, Archimat, LUS, Gen X Gamer, and I also go into Archimat's expose on Karl. But there is nothing in just about any of this where they talk about his racism. But it is something that I mention in this longer video. This video is 2.5 hours. There are timestamps, but in a smaller section towards the start, I mention Karl's racism, including his Nazi friends, RE, our white goose. So, I was kind of surprised recently when Gen X Gamer actually mentioned to me, Gen X Gamer actually mentioned my video and said, "Oh, hey, this person, Persephone, Vanderward, you actually basically got my name right. I mean, I'm American, so I'm not someone who, I don't actually speak Dutch. I was raised around Dutch-speaking people, but it's just not something that ever stuck with me." But long story short, I spent my childhood hearing about the Nazis and Nazi Germany. Again, my grandfather was a Holocaust survivor, and he talked about fighting the Nazis back in the day from 1940 onwards when Holland was occupied by the Nazis and traitors in the Dutch government. So, I was kind of surprised when Gen X Gamer mentioned my video. Partly I have a smaller channel, and I'm not someone who tends to really catch on because I do say the quiet part out loud, whereas various people, including, as we'll see, Gen X Gamer, but also LUS, where they will acknowledge the fact that Karl's racist, but they don't really actually quote anything, and they try and basically shield themselves while they're doing it. They're really tiptoeing around it, beating around the bush, as it were. Whereas if you look at my work, for instance, I have different videos where I talk about Karl's racism. I do mention it, but I have pieces where I've, mentioned it a bit more explicitly. This piece, for instance, which I have covered before on my YouTube channel, I wrote the piece and then I read it on my YouTube channel, Those Who Walk Away from Speedrunning, a trans woman's experiences researching and abuse suffered from the speedrunning community. And if we scroll down, we get to the section about Karl Jobst. And Karl Jobst is someone that I was writing about in relation to Caleb Hart and Oats and Goats and various people who either are explicitly racist themselves or who take the white moderate approach and basically apologize for their Nazi friends. So Caleb Hart is one such individual who was being bigoted not just towards trans people, but also towards people of color. A bigotry for one is a bigotry of all, and generally if you are incredibly bigoted towards one particular group, you're going to be bigoted towards others. So it's a continuation of Gamergate, essentially, and this piece was mentioning Caleb Hart, but it also, by association, just through similar behaviors, also talks about Karl Jobst. And I even mentioned Karl Jobst is a wonderful detective, an awful person, non-existent activist. It's possible to be both and simply boils down to what he detects and why. In his case, he investigates frauds in the gaming community at large and legitimately scummy people doing shitty things, but does so to run from and disguise his own shitty past and currently sexist, racist behaviors, i.e. he's a white moderate, which is really just a Nazi in disguise. RE from a book that I wrote where I talk about him investigating cheating in Jumpman speedruns, and I talk about that for a little bit. But then we get to a section from r/speedrun where I talk about his racist history, his racist past. So here I write, the drama starts in 2021 when a person known as Tomato Anus, we're off to a great start I see, severed ties with Karl due to some company Karl kept, i.e. a neo-Nazi named R. White Goose. There's a lot of messages going back years regarding the server Goose was on, but those are from someone whose own testimony isn't the most reliable, a fash. Take a look at them if you want and decide for yourself what to think. Karl was friends with this person for years, frequented the server with other like-minded people. There's also Karl's explaining away of his own racist language. The following quote is from EM Tech on Reddit. And if we click on the r/Reddit, we are taken to, or the subreddit, r/speedrun on Reddit itself. We're taken to Tomato Anus cutting all ties with Karl Jobst. And if we hover the mouse over it, specifically 4 years ago, September 15, 2021, effective immediately, I'm ending all involvement and association with Karl Jobst, including the Legends podcast. I was made aware and notified about the things he said and done in the past that directly conflict with my morals and who I am as a person. And at the same time, various people were responding, including EM Tech. On the same day, he was implicated in one of the images EM Tech 1 writes, leaked in the Discord gallery. The image in question, if we go here, there are several images that we'll be reading, and I have censored out the racist slurs just to be courteous and considerate to the people that they're used to normally disparage and attack. But one in particular, the one that he was implicated in, was in talking to our white goose. This was originally posted in 2020, and again, I've censored out the slur in question, but they also say blacks, for instance, which is also problematic. And blacks use the word all the time, and whites can't. In hip-hop settings, or if they want to imitate the culture, as in cultural appropriation, rap culture, which is something that has been tokenized, of course, but it's also something that has been appropriated by people who are not people of color, such as Eminem, Marky Mark, Vanilla Ice, white rappers. Oh, well, why can't white people take racial slurs and use them to make money? And they think it's dumb. Our white goose says, yes, everyone in here will agree it's dumb, but then again, so are most people. And Karl 12-inch Jobst says, yeah, imagine if whites said blacks, you can't use this word. Our white goose replies, they just go along with, OMG, you said the N-word, your career is ruined, irredeemable, because they think that's a socially proper response, essentially cancel culture. So, Karl 12-inch Jobst, it's also worth mentioning that 12-inch is something that we'll come to see is racist unto itself. This is something that EM Tech talks about, but it's also something that Karl Jobst, he has the eggplant emoji, which is a dog whistle, where he has an obsession with large penises and basically dick measuring quite literally with people that he attacks racially, and insisting that he has a huge penis and is someone who advertises his beliefs through things as innocuous as seemingly innocuous as eggplant emojis. It's just an emoji, right? It's very similar to Pepe the Frog or Nordic Roots or any other Nordic dog whistle. You know, it's obscurantism. So he's taking a symbol and using it in a way to hide his belief system in plain sight. It's code, but, you know, for those who know, it's as clear as day. So the specific image here is just one instance of a larger systemic issue in regards to Karl being bigoted. And those things are actually discussed, you know, fairly at length by EM Tech, who writes, not only was he implicated in one of the images in the leaked Discord gallery that we just looked at, he also says, I don't think the message is that big of a deal. I'd put it in the bad, uneducated but apologize, own up and move on category of takes. The reason why I struggle to see Karl as a decent person is that some people would bring up their concerns afterwards, and Karl would outright lie about the N-word having any negative connotations in Australia. So if we go to another image that EM Tech supplies, he's specifically referring to this image. Because you're complaining that you can't use a word that is strongly associated with systemic slavery, discrimination, abuse, harassment, and lynchings that have all occurred in some form or another over the past 200 years, white people don't get to have their own word because they've never been oppressed as a class in America. the slurs used for white people simply don't have any of the weight behind them. And Karl Jobst replies, "No, I am not complaining that I can't use that word. The universe does not revolve around the USA. I am Australian. I have never used or heard anyone use that word. We don't use that word here. It is not part of our vernacular. You are clearly projecting. Explain how you came to that conclusion." Someone else says, "Not trying to stir the pot here, but what was the context of that screenshot? I've never seen it before, and I'm genuinely curious." And in regards to this screenshot, where Karl is talking to our white goose, who, again, is a Nazi, like an open, confessed Nazi who came clean after he was exposed, Karl replies, "My sentence was specifically referring to the notion that white people are not allowed to sing lyrics of songs they enjoy because of the color of their skin." The reverse racism argument. "I may be culturally insensitive as I am not from America, and that word doesn't have any weight here," which is a lie. People can disagree with the stance. However, actually implying that this is the metric for racism is ridiculous in my opinion. So according to Karl, the metric for racism isn't using racial slurs, which is stupid. But again, just in Queensland, Australia, there are various places, whether N-words bounce, N-word head, for other uses. This is a Wikipedia article. For other uses, see N-word head. N-word head is a small island in the northern part of Shelburne Bay in far north Queensland, Australia, Queensland being where Karl Jobst comes from. Such outcrops were previously known as N-word heads by British sailors. In August 2017, it was announced the name N-word head would no longer be used by the Department of Mount N-word, Queensland, Australia. Wandekla, Queensland. Wandekla is a locality in the Taberlands region, Queensland, Australia. Wandekla was originally called N-word Creek. So there are various places around where Karl lives that after he was born, from his childhood into his adulthood, would have still been referred to by their names that were given to them by white colonizers. And originally, I'm not sure about, I think Australia specifically was a prison colony for the British Crown, British sailors, British Crown, whereas New Zealand, from what I understand, was actually colonized by the Dutch, first and foremost, and then it was sold. I'm not as intimately familiar with the politics of that, but off the top of my head in any instance, but there is a settler colonial past to these places comparable to the United States. So when Karl says the universe does not revolve around the USA, the fact remains that in Australia, systemic racism, which is something that he is literally whitewashing, has a very similar history. The British and the Dutch colonized Australia and New Zealand and gave them racist names. And Karl is saying that he's never heard of that and he doesn't know anyone who did. So Karl is someone who lied. He lied repeatedly in bad faith about the usage of racial slurs. He's like, "Oh, I don't know what's going on with that," when they're literally all over the place in where he comes from. So he's lying, but Karl is also racist in other ways that we'll talk about in just a second. But this is what EMTech is talking about when he says that Karl would outright lie about the N-word having any negative connotations in Australia. This is absolutely 100% false, though as Karl would say, he had said something factually incorrect is probably how he would frame it. But point in fact, he lied, and it was a bald-faced lie, but it was presented in a very white, moderate, bad faith, neo-Nazi kind of way. Like, he's a neo-Nazi with more masks. He's a charming Nazi. He's presenting himself as a white moderate. The true enemy of progress is the white moderate, according to Martin Luther King. That doesn't just apply to the United States, but also in Australia. It's a geopolitical issue. It's known all throughout the world. EMTech goes on to say, "I'm Australian too, and this is absolutely not true in regards to the N-word not having any negative connotations in Australia. Karl is from Queensland, by the way, which is why that image references several places in that state that used to have, or still have, the N-word in it. That word has historically been used against our natives and the 30-plus-year-old man, especially one who has an internet presence, would know better. Whatever you think about Goose, he has been very apologetic for the last 3 years, and I think he's made a genuine effort to move in a positive direction. I believe this to be a genuine change in character, and if it isn't, I'd rather accept someone faking being a changed person than turn my back on a genuine one. Karl, on the other hand, has never apologized and instead lied about it. Even worse, was on Discord, he was ranting about people accusing him of being racist, and he brought up his Asian wife as his anti-racist shield. Do I need to mention that Derek Chauvin had an Asian wife? It's really beyond me that the community continues to ignore this guy's behavior. Edit. Here's some more receipts of him justifying using the N-word, bragging about sleeping with many women, his past of being a pickup artist, him bragging about his massive cock, and wanting breast implants for his Asian wife. He named his son Maximus Wong. I seriously can't not think this is related to his penis eggplant obsession. And again, the eggplant obsession is literally advertised on his Twitter account. And the eggplant is literally a symbol of vaudeville tied to the myth of the male black rapist. So he's taking that and using it to basically joust with these people when they don't really want to have anything to do with him. And it's a cryptonym. It's something that's used to hide what he's about. He is not a flag-waving neo-Nazi. He is what they would refer to as a crypto-fascist. So Karl the crypto-fascist. And he has never apologized about these things. And in regards to that, this is the image EMTech is talking about. So in 2019, Karl says, not Twitter. So in my opinion, I think it's fine for white people to say the N-word when singing hip-hop songs if they are the lyrics. That makes me a white supremacist. And Karl's trying to be sarcastic here, but he's absolutely right. If you're looking for an excuse to say slurs, and you're voluntarily doing it, congratulations, you're a Nazi. Karl says, yeah, probably the N-word being used in hip-hop. Yeah, something along those lines, because I do think it's hypocritical. Grasping at straws. Americans are fuckwits, though. We Aussies never knew that word until hip-hop brought it to mainstream music. And they're all lying here. You know, they're lying like, oh, we never heard of the N-word, even though if you come from Queensland, that is literally the names of geographical locations that were colonized by white people like Karl Jobst. So this is a crypto-fascist behavior where, oh, we didn't know what this was, even though it's literally right next to their house. You know, it's on the map. This would not be hard to find. It would be a part of the mainstream vernacular. It would come up in weather forecasts. It would be something that you talked about with your friends. Hey, you want to go to this place with the N-word in its name. And I think it's entirely possible that they might see these names and think, oh, okay, well, we don't necessarily entirely understand the connotation of them fully, especially if you're like 8. But to say that you didn't know that they existed at all is just stupid. It's a lie, you know. It's they're in bad faith. I'm Australian. Who cares what I think? We don't use that word. Okay, more lies from Karl. Karl Jobst. They have the mentality of kids. I mean, it's pretty shocking they still care about things like that. I'm married, so it's not exactly something I care about at all. About everything I own, I've been with more women than them in regards to him being a pickup artist. Karl Jobst does not like his father, so he says he's not taking my surname in regards to his son. I have nothing to do with that side of my family, so he will be Maximus Wong. So literally, Maximus Wong, it's a Orientalist dick joke. It's Orientalism vis-a-vis Edward Said. And, you know, there's a eugenics quality. Improve sperm quality. Yeah, we're trying to get my sperm into Doris's egg. Doris wants this Chinese shit. Karl Jr. confirmed. Pepe the Frog. More Nazi dog whistles. It'll be awesome. Chinese and Australian. Imagine the hair color. So many possibilities. Should be good. Half Chinese, half massive cock. So he's basically saying, oh, well, my dick's bigger than the dicks of people's of color, and Chinese people are often discriminated against and accused of having smaller penises on average. And, you know, there's all kinds of really gross, icky, yuck, Nazi stuff. Okay, so Doris is getting some surgery today. I'm at the hospital today and tomorrow. Nothing too major, but I'll be back on Saturday. Oh, damn, I hope it goes well, and best wishes to you both. Oh, thanks. Oh shit, is everything all right? Thanks, everything is all right. She has to get something removed. Hope everything goes fine for the both of you. Thanks, man. Man, here I was thinking you were finally getting the titty implants. And then you have an eggplant emoji, but it's shaped like a heart. I guess, I don't know, mixed metaphors. 12-inch cock and double D tits with Meg Karl unstoppable. If YouTube keeps getting bigger, the titty implants are going to happen. So this is in 2019. And then there's some various images where that are basically tied to Karl's, you know, grifter mindset in terms of his pickup artistry. So this talks about that. But then, you know, even on Discord, hi guys, I'm creating a new YouTube channel to specifically help men overcome approach anxiety. Looking forward to feedback options on the content so I can make it as helpful as possible. Sorry about the shitty setup. I'll improve that over time. About me doing pickup game for 9 years, but I don't teach pickup or claim to. I focus on building confidence. So, you know, there's elements like that. There's elements like that. Basically, the takeaway is that Karl is, you know, into eugenics. He's sexist. He's racist. He's a crypto-fascist, and he's denying all of this. But then he, you know, at least of this date, so from 2018, 2019, Karl Jobst is someone who would basically say he would downplay his own racism. And then in 2020, it came out that our white goose was a bigot, and Karl would basically routinely after that point from 2021 onwards deny that it had ever happened. So this is what EM Tech talked about, and this was, you know, 4 years ago in 2021, and this was a year after it came out, from what I understand, you know. So from 2020 into 2021, about a year after it originally came out, EM Tech is talking about it a year later and saying, look, Karl is racist, and you can see echoes of that in Karl's Twitch channel. And if you go down here, for instance, you can go to his Discord channel and la-di-da, you know, okay, I'm gonna accept that. And if we click on that, for instance, here is his actual channel. Okie dokie. A lot of people don't want to go on to his Discord channel, but here, if you want proof that Karl is still a crypto-fascist in 2025, as of 4/2022, and this is after the lawsuit that he lost, after April Fool's, he has My Heart Goes Out to You. This is crypto-fascism, where he has Elon Musk doing the Nazi salute. So yeah, this is proof, you know, just from Karl's own Discord server, of Karl himself, of 4/2022, 2025, using crypto-fascist imagery. And he has not changed one bit, and his duplicitous nature has continued into the lawsuit that people have been talking about since April Fool's. They've been talking about it a little bit before that, but it basically came out that, you know, Karl was found liable in the eyes of the law, which means that people began to take what he said or didn't say or lied about more seriously. And this brings us to the fact that, okay, people are like, okay, now that the judge has ruled in Billy's favor, it throws Karl into a bad light. It basically shows us that Karl is fallible, that Karl is acting in bad faith, and people have investigated him in regards to his sexism with his pickup artistry and in terms of his scamming behavior with his GoFundMe in regards to the lawsuit and lying about the nature of the lawsuit, saying that he had more than one lawsuit, so on and so forth. So this brings us to the second part of the video, my video, in that we're going to talk about how people don't really want to say the quiet part out loud, they'll happily milk him for money in regards to his pickup artistry and talking about sexism and stuff like that. But they won't talk about the racism. They'll mention it, but they are surprisingly quiet when they do talk about it at all. And when they do talk about it, they will skirt around it. They'll tiptoe around the bush, and they won't really say the quiet part out loud. They'll sort of say it out of the side of their mouths. And there are various people who are doing this that I'm not really surprised. And there are some where it's a bit more surprising. So the second part of the video is basically us taking what I've discussed in regards to Karl's racism and applying it to people who should know better and who should be talking about it more openly, because silence is genocide. Silence is death. Silence is death being something from the Holocaust period, where silence is death. So Avram Finkelstein, Brian Howard, Oliver Johnson, Charles Krylov, Chris Leone, and Jorge, name I can't pronounce. And this specific poster, Silence is Death, was made in 1987. Avram Finkelstein et al. Founded the Silence Equals Death project to support one another in the midst of the AIDS crisis, inspired by the posters of the Art Workers Coalition and the Guerrilla Girls, both of whose work is on view nearby. They mobilized to spread the word about the epidemic and created the now iconic Silence Equals Death poster, featuring the pink triangle as a reference to Nazi persecution of LGBTQ people in the 1930s and 40s. It became the central visual symbol of AIDS activism after it was adopted by the direct action advocacy group AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power, ACT UP. So if we scroll down, silence equals death. So silence equals death is something that I write about. Silence is death. Silence is genocide. So the refusal to talk about bigotry and things that lead to genocide, because if you have people who are bigoted, then you're going to have, at a systemic level, then you're going to have systemic bigotry as a system. And settler colonialism is a system of replacement. It is a system of extermination, and it uses bigotry to dehumanize the victims of the state. So the refusal to acknowledge that or to talk about it is bad. So you can talk about, like, sexism, for instance, that's good, but you also want to talk about these other things, and you want to talk about them openly and nakedly, because right now we are living in fascist times. And this brings us to Gamer X and LUS. And these are people who have acknowledged the fact that Karl Jobst is racist. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to talk about how they acknowledge it, but then that they don't want to talk about it. They are kind of being cowardly about it, and I can understand perhaps why to a certain extent. They are both non-white and they are assimilating. Assimilation doesn't just have to be open imitation of the colonizer. It can also be someone keeping quiet in defense of the colonizer. So if you have people like Gen X Gamer who are making money off of Karl Jobst, milking him in Gen X Gamer's own words, but then refusing to talk about him being racist, Gen X Gamer is not a white person, and LUS is not white. LUS is Asian, and Gen X Gamer is Hispanic. So they're an Asian and Hispanic American person, respectively, and each one of them is kind of refusing to talk about Karl Jobst's racism. They are being quiet about it, and they are refusing to say anything when the evidence, as I stated earlier in the video, has been available for years. It was available before 2020, but then the lid was blown off in 2020 into 2021, and Karl Jobst basically doubled down and did crypto-fascist behavior that I showed earlier, is in regards to he's still using dog whistles, Nazi dog whistles. This isn't even a dog whistle, really. It's a Nazi salute. So it's not a dog whistle. They're trying to treat it as a joke. They're literally sugarcoating it with candy, but it's just Nazi bullshit. And so you have two non-white people who are talking about Karl Jobst to make money off him, but aren't really comfortable talking about racism, even though it will affect them. It may not today, it may not tomorrow, or the next day after that, or however long, but eventually those deportations that you're hearing about that are happening to illegal aliens are going to affect people such as yourselves. I can't predict exactly how it will, but it will. And the irony being is that Gen X Gamer, for instance, let's watch what he says, and then I'll talk about why it's a problem that he doesn't talk about it.
It would have been quite different. Look, guys, the stuff that I'm going to talk about right now, I'm not going to address, any of it after this. I'm really not, because number one, I don't want to be that kind of channel that's going into these things. Number one, because I have kids here around the house, right? I have kids around the house. Most of them are going to primary school. I just don't want to be discussing these kind of things around the house. I have 5 or 10 minutes to, clown a little bit, keep it lighthearted for your entertainment, right? But since you guys have been asking me about this, I'm going to address it here and at no other time. I don't really want to talk about the things that Karl was into in his past because they're so dark. Whether it comes to his political views, whether he's a fan of people that lived in the 1930s in Germany, the Swazies.
Okay, so you see how Gen X Gamer is basically creating a cone of silence around the word racism. He won't even say it at all. And he's like, we have this thing, and I'm not going to talk about it except this one time here, and I don't want to talk about it because there are kids in the house. And I'm like, okay, so you're literally anti-woke, all right? The idea is that woke originally comes from like the 1920s and 30s, where people of color in America would talk about being woke as a form of consciousness, being conscious of systemic racist issues. You're literally making the opposite argument. This is Black Skin, White Masks by Frantz Fanon. You're assimilating. Oh, we can't talk to our own kids, our own non-white children about racism. Why not? It's in their best interest, because if fascism continues to happen, which it will, it is going to affect you and your children negatively. It's not just going to stop at trans people like me. Doesn't matter what the color of my skin is, I'm trans. So I'm an enemy of the state. Donald Trump explicitly said that I do not have the right to exist. Well, when fascism continues to grow, because you're ignoring it, it will affect you and your children. You're not protecting them. You are subjecting them to the harm that fascism will invariably cause. It didn't just stop in Nazi Germany with Jewish people. It affected people of color there. There were people of color who were basically transplants from German colonies that were displaced after World War I and the Treaty of Versailles. They found themselves either pushed into Germany or exiled there after the treaty in question. And then following the Marshall Plan and various initiatives that led to the collapse of the German economy, they found themselves the subject of the same campaigns that were persecuting Jewish people as the scapegoats of Nazi Germany. It included Jewish people, as the primary target within these propaganda campaigns, but also people of color, also gay people, and sex workers, and anyone who wasn't Aryan, basically, and disabled people, the elderly, the mentally ill, what the Nazis would call useless eaters. It's literally the Hunger Games. This will not stop with me, and it will affect you and yours. The family that you're trying to protect by keeping quiet, and the bottom line that you're trying to protect by speaking in code, that is a mistake. And you owe it to yourself, you and your family, to think about something other than money, and to maybe stop assimilating for 2 seconds and actually speak out about this, because this isn't solidarity. This is division. This is divide and conquer. Silence is genocide, and you're keeping quiet. And the way that you're tiptoeing around this is a form of silence.
right? The Yahtzees.
You can't even say the word Nazi. They invaded my country and killed members of my family. My grandfather was not a perfect man, but he fought the Nazis when it came right down to it, and making jokes about it and saying, ha ha ha, the Yahtzees, after Trump has been elected and after Elon Musk did the Nazi salute, is genocide denial. Genocide is happening at home. Fascism is when imperialism, ergo genocide, comes home to empire. Foucault's boomerang, the Imperial Boomerang. These are not new concepts, but you're employing them in ways that help Nazis. Keeping quiet about this will not protect you and yours.
But it's all there. I'm going to link these videos down below by people I can't even pronounce, right? And let me tell you, being Hispanic, this is a challenge. Persephone van der Ward.
Yes, correct.
Right? I hope I got it right. Right? I hope I got it right. This is a very long video. Right?
Okay, so also I just want to say, I'm very open about the fact that I'm gay, that I'm trans. I literally have, the Gothic communism symbol that I created in my avatar. I have my name, Persephone van der Ward, male to female, trans woman, they, them, or she, her, poly, demipan, 38, so on and so forth. And there's various things. I link to my book, Gothic Communism Series Promo, so I have a blog post that you can go and read about my book. I have an old Gothic podcast. I'm very transparent about this stuff.
I hope I got it right. Right? I hope I got it right. This is a very long video. It would probably help if you put timestamps on it.
I do have timestamps in the video. If you look at the bar, there are timestamps in the video in question. Now, I will agree that the point of this video on Karl Jobst, my final say, or full timeline breakdown plus his bigoted past, I don't really talk about his bigoted past very much, and it's kind of buried in the video. It is at the start of the video, but I agree. That's why I'm making this video. This video was made directly in response to what you said. So this video that Gen X Gamer made, Karl Jobst's dark past comes back to haunt him financially. This is where he's basically refusing to say racism and stuff like that. It's like he's allergic to the word, and he's Hispanic, and racism is something that absolutely affects Hispanic people in the United States, now and in the past and in the future. But there's another point in the video where Gen X Gamer mentions LUS, and there's a similar thing that comes up.
About some of his posts, right? Presented this whole GoFundMe stuff. But more than anything here, he says, it's a little racist if I had to be honest.
So LUS is saying it's a little racist if I had to be honest with you. So in the video by LUS exposing Karl Jobst's GoFundMe scandal 2 years ago, you can see it right there in the subtitles. And so Gen X Gamer is acknowledging it, and when he hears it, he laughs about it. For him, it's why is that funny? Like, I don't understand. It would be like if someone said, oh, it's a little transphobic, and then I laughed about it. Why? It's not, racism isn't funny. It's not a joke. It's a life or death matter. You have people who are being exiled to death camps right now who are American citizens. You have mothers from other countries who gave birth to children in the United States, and their children are being exiled along with them. They're being deported. Children with cancer who are between 2 and 4 years old, basically, very sick, ill children who are being exported with their parents. They're being treated like useless eaters, and the mother is forced to make Sophie's choice. Okay, I can leave my child behind in America, or I can take them with me. So this is no laughing matter.
About some of his posts, right?
And some of his posts being the Discord posts that we went over earlier, stuff that has been common knowledge for the past at least 5 years.
I've been alluding to it. I haven't, said it.
Yes, you haven't said it. It's like, dude, just say it, and it's like nobody wants to be the first one let he without sin cast the first stone, right? So nobody wants to say anything, which makes me kind of wonder. I'm like, okay, why aren't people saying anything? And you could say, oh, well, let's keep quiet. We're people of color. If we say something, we'll get attacked, and wanting to keep your head down and stuff like that. But you are also claiming to be an activist, and you're doing the same kind of thing, ironically, that Karl is doing, where you're like, I'm an activist, but then I won't talk about this, I won't talk about that. It's a double standard. In this case, you are doing the same thing in a way to your own detriment. It does not behoove you to keep quiet about this, because the way to stop fascism isn't to keep your head down, it's to stand and fight.
Because nobody else has said it, if
no one else has said it, so you don't want to be the first. Well, allow me to do it for you. I have more privilege than you. I'm white, I'm trans, but I can pass. I have a deep voice. My name has not legally been changed. I have not had any kind of surgery or anything like that. I am, by and large, someone who can pass. So allow me to do it for you. Karl Jobst is a Nazi, but also you're defending him by refusing to speak out about him while still making money off him and laughing about the fact that he is a Nazi. Like, just dyed in the wool.
If a lawyer says it, then I'm just commenting on the lawyer. Right?
Oh, well, if the lawyer said it. So you're literally using LUS as a shield at this point. And, the kind of fucked up thing about this, to be honest, is that when LUS was talking about this, he was, and we'll look at that in just a second, he was saying how it bothered him greatly. Like, he did not like discovering that. It bothered him. And now you're like, oh, well, he's just a lawyer. He said it. He, ha ha. But it was actually traumatic for LUS to say that. It made him uncomfortable. And that's kind of what you're laughing at or about while refusing to say the quiet part out loud yourself, despite the fact that you're both, people of color. And that has a tokenized element to it, because if you keep your head down during a lynch mob, then you are feeding into that. You're letting it happen. You're not fighting back. If you want to know what you would be doing in Nazi Germany, look at your behaviors right now. And if you're keeping quiet now, you would have kept quiet then. And the way to stop fascism, again, is to not keep quiet. Silence is genocide. Silence is death.
Right. And of course, you guys have put stuff out there. Apparently, he scrubbed a lot of this stuff, but he was able to find it, wherever he has it, wherever.
So LUS was able to find it. So you know what I'm talking about. And not just through me, but also LUS. So if we go to the LUS video, which Gen X in the other video literally puts in the description, the video that, he's citing, that he's watched, LUS has this to say.
Probably because he never, there are a lot of things that I found that I have no idea why Karl still has these comments up on this guy's video. I found some other stuff that is very disturbing on the Discord channel that Karl has posted about. And again, it's a long time ago.
It's a long time ago. You were a Nazi a long time ago. So like, even LUS, when he's talking about this stuff, he's trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. Like, he's like, I used to be a Karl Jobst fanboy, according to his own statements. And even now, he's still kind of defending him.
It's a little racist, if I had to be honest with you. And
okay, so we have an Asian American who's looking at Karl Jobst, a white Australian man, and describing his behavior even now as racist.
I didn't take Karl to be that type of individual, but again, the more I learn,
the more you learn, the more you dig into this as investigators, the more you're going to discover that he hasn't changed one bit. Beauty is only skin deep. And Karl, however fabulous he tries to present himself as his outer image, the cracks have started to form. So it's up to people such as yourself, LUS, to speak out about this.
Let me repeat this again. I'm getting really upset right now about Karl, because I used to be a huge fan of his.
So again, LUS is bothered by this because racism is something that affects him on a day-to-day basis. The same way that it would affect Gen X gaming.
If you watch the completionist arc I did, I was 100% on Karl and Mutahar's side. Then the more you learn about Karl, and people say, oh, it's because he lost. Yeah, it is because he lost.
Yes. The idea is that people only gave a shit, or they only started digging into Karl because his image his peerless image, his unimpeachable character suddenly became impeachable.
If we won, none of this would have mattered. Nobody would look into the GoFundMe. Everyone would just be like, oh yeah, we did it. We beat him. But he lost, okay, in court. Something that he didn't think he would be able. And when you look at the evidence, what evidence have I presented?
Okay, so I don't know if there's really much more mentioning of this by LUS. He's largely talking about the GoFundMe scandal. He's talking about the evidence. So the racism, like, that's being discussed here is only mentioned, like, in passing for, like, 2 seconds. Nobody wants to be the first one to blow the whistle, right? Especially in a fascist nation that's only getting worse. But we have to, because fascism is when capitalism goes toxic. It's when capitalism is in decay. And we have to fight against that, because the zombie apocalypse, the people who are eating us, who are actually the zombies, are the Nazis. But they're going to point the finger at us and say, you're the zombie, you need to be shot, you need to be concentrated and killed, exterminated. It's literally the extermination replacement rhetoric, come home to empire. That's what capital in decay is. It doesn't challenge capital, it just kills capital's enemies at home. That's what's happening. And LUS and Gen X Gamer, but also some other individuals as well, where if you look at, I don't know, this person, for instance, or let's see if there's other instances of people, Moist Critical or Mudahar from Some Ordinary Gamers. If we look at individuals like that, those persons are people who are white centrist gamers, or they are white functioning, which is to say token in Mudahar's case. Some Ordinary Gamers is, if we go to Noah Sampson and we look at the video Denial and Deflection, the genocide supporting YouTubers responded, one of the individuals in question that he is talking about is Mudahar from Some Ordinary Gamers. But then you also have Destiny, who's, you know, a white centrist streamer. But the reality of centrism is it's just white moderacy, or in the case of Mudahar, black skin or brown skin, white masks. It's assimilation. So Moist Critical, Destiny, Some Ordinary Gamers, and various other people who were involved, not just in what's going on in Gaza, the Palestinians attacking Arabs, but also attacking people elsewhere in the world. This will not stop in one particular place. It happens in the Congo, it happened in Chile in the 1970s, the Global South, it happened in Australia hundreds of years ago into the present. You know, so like people like this, it happens with Turkey Tom being racist, being a centrist gamer, who's another individual who's also a genocide supporting YouTuber. So the reason that you have people like Charlie Kirk who said, oh, I didn't know, and even in Gen X Gamer's own videos where he talks about Charlie Kirk and Penguin throws Karl under the bus, and Gen X Gamer says, like, oh, I don't believe you, Charlie Kirk. You said, oh, well, you know, Charlie Kirk himself says, I had no idea that Karl was dishonest about his the lawsuit, you know, that there wasn't actually more than one lawsuit. The lawsuit was about Apollo Legend. But the thing is, if they're dishonest about that, then there's no way that these dudes didn't know about Karl being a Nazi. And, you know, in regards to Karl Jobst's dark past comes back to haunt him, Gen X Gamer even says, if people like me, Persephone Vanderward, know, then there's no way that Moist Critical didn't know. There's no way that Mudahar, Some Ordinary Gamers didn't know. Their lawyers would have known. LUS knew. And they're talking about this publicly. They're flirting with it. They're trying, like, they're oscillating so hard because they want to speak out, but they're also afraid of Trump. They're also afraid of the establishment. They're afraid of getting demonetized for talking about racism on YouTube, because racism is historically prevalent on YouTube. YouTube will basically attack people who talk out about this kind of thing because they are, to talk about racism is to threaten the profit motive. It's fascism defends the profit motive, defends capital. The profit motive is inherently built on settler colonialist structures that never went anywhere. America is a settler colony. It's the land of profit, the land of plenty. And it's used to basically take from indigenous populations, or just people who existed previously, and the entire concept was one that was used to attack these people. And this doesn't just affect their ability to investigate Karl, but also in regards to Karl Jobst and the person who was paying Karl's legal fees. I don't know his name off the top of my head, but the founder of Minecraft is a billionaire. So billionaires are bad, and fascists are bad, and centrists who don't call out these people are bad. They're white moderates. They're the enemies of progress, the same way that Martin Luther King called them out for back in the 1960s, letter from Birmingham Jail. The enemy of progress is the white moderate. So you have Karl Jobst, for instance, who's a cryptofascist, a white moderate, but then you have Moist Critical, who's a white moderate, and then Some Ordinary Gamers, and Mudahar is, token. But then you have people like Gen X Gamer or LUS who are also tokenized because they don't want to speak out about racism either. They want to keep quiet. They think if they keep their heads down, this will all blow over. And it's like, well, yeah, it'll blow over after a bunch of people have died. What happened in Nazi Germany? Lots of people died. Specifically, the Battle of Berlin, and Soviets invaded Germany and destroyed and killed everyone there. A large number of them. I mean, there were survivors, obviously, but it's just like when fascism happens, a country melts down. So it's like, okay, to prevent that from happening, you have to, it's like there's an iceberg coming and you're just going to ignore it until it hits the Titanic. It's like, no, you're supposed to say something before it hits the Titanic, because by the time it does, it's too late. And it may be too late already, but there's still, are you going to, if in that case, are you going to die with your dignity or without your dignity? And there is plenty of shame in keeping quiet about things. In the end, we will not remember the voices of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. Martin Luther King. So keeping silent, you're not my friend or the friends of people I know if you're keeping quiet. My partner is from New Zealand. They're Maori. Okay? And my partner is indigenous. I'm trans. Most of my friends are trans and or minorities in some other shape or form. They're disabled, people of color, to varying degrees. It's like oppression and privilege is a spectrum. But my friends, the people that I'm trying to protect, you are not helping them by virtue of keeping silent. And that includes Gen X Gamer. That includes LUS. You need to be more like someone like Noah Sampson. And Noah Sampson is, a larger channel. He can afford to take certain risks, largely because his videos are demonetized, but he'll say the quiet part out loud and he won't censor anything. So the very least you can do is that. And I understand if you're a minority, you're subject to more risk and things like that, but you're still doing the white man's approach to making money off of these things. You're milking this, but you're not using it as a form of activism. And you need to start doing that for your sake, for my sake, for the sake of my friends, and for the sake of white cishet people, for that matter. They'll die too. Racism is bad for everyone, and it needs to be something that's discussed. Silence is genocide will affect everyone from top to bottom. Those with the most privilege and those with the least. All will feel it. None will be spared when fascism melts down, and it's already starting to happen. And you need to say something before it's too late, because before you know it, someone will be knocking at your door. The Nazis are the ones who knock. They are the danger. So you must say something before it comes to that. ICE is already kidnapping people at airports, at colleges. But one day, they're going to be grabbing people off the street. They'll be coming into your homes and killing you. And this is the first step towards that, keeping quiet about Karl Jobst and his racism. If you apologize for that, what else are you going to apologize for? Don't do it. Okay, so that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed. It's not necessarily something that I wanted to talk about, but I also was kind of hoping that other people would talk about it, and you're not. So here I am making this video. I wish I didn't have to, but that's also part of the problem, right? It's like, no, we need to stand up and fight. So that's what I'm doing. I'm doing my part. I have relative privilege, but I'm also oppressed. I'm trans, and I'm very open about that. I've written multiple books about it. Multiple, 6 at this point. Well, 5 going on 6. But I'll be ending my book series, Sex Positivity, which you can find more information about in my book description. Here, I'll even plug it. You go to my channel, you click on the first link, my book, Got the Communism Series Promo. Sex Positivity versus Sex Coercion, or Gothic Communism, Liberating Sex Work Under Capitalism Through Iconoclastic Art, written and illustrated by Persephone Vanderwaard. It says, copyright 2025. I originally started the series back in 2022. I published my first book in 2023, and since then have published 4 more, going on 5 extra books, so 6 in total. So I am very open about this, and I'm not quiet about it. I advertise it. And it's something that we need to advertise. Fascism isn't something that you can ignore. If you do, if you normalize it, if you act like it isn't there, it will find you and it will destroy you. So that's what I'm doing here. I am blowing the whistle, and you need to blow the whistle too. I perhaps will be doing more videos like this. I'm going to basically see how people respond to this one. I don't know. But this is what I'm doing. And we'll see how things go in the near future. If you like this content, like, share, and subscribe. It is something that I'm doing now because I have more time, because I'm not writing my book series nearly as much. It goes into the same stuff, but it's also X-rated, so it's not something I can promote very easily on YouTube. In any event, thanks for watching, and until next time, take care.